Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go. We're burning daylight.
Welcome to the Frontier Freedom Hour with Jeff Hunt. Sponsored by Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. Now, here's Jeff Hunt.
Friends, great to be with you for another week of the Frontier Freedom Hour. This is Jeff Hunt, the chief wagon boss of this operation. Running the board for us, Michael Geronimo Arpaio. Always doing a great job. And it's wonderful to be with Salem. We had a wonderful time this week. Dennis Prager was in town, and everyone got together, full house, and enjoyed an evening with Dennis Prager to be able to talk with him. So our friends with Salem are doing just a wonderful job and had a great week there. Hey, if you're listening to us for the first time, we cover issues facing the Western United States from a Christian conservative perspective. We're thankful we're not getting all the government we are paying for. I want to do a bit of a disclaimer. We're going to do this at the top of every commercial break because you need to know this. The content discussed on this week's show deals with sensitive issues of child sexual abuse online. So we strongly encourage listener discretion with regards to this issue. And my guest is Theresa Sidebotham, who is with Telios Law. She assists organizations in the U.S. and internationally with a special focus on employment law, religious and nonprofit law, and child safety. She advises on numerous misconduct investigations. She's also, as I mentioned, the founder of Telios Law. And she's been working on this issue, and this is going to be a gut punch because I guarantee you haven't even thought of this. At least I pray to God you hadn't even thought of this. As I've talked with people about this, their eyes are opened. Something you've never even considered, something that's heartbreaking. The idea of AI-generated child pornography. Just let that sit, all right? So AI-generated, what does that mean? It's computer-generated, right? You type in, and the computer is able to pull together ideas and create totally unique images. And I hadn't even thought of this issue at all until it was raised recently. A Fox News article, artificial intelligence could help normalize child sexual abuse as graphic images erupt online. Wow. This is something that we're going to have to deal with in law and policy. And, oftentimes we think, well, a lot of the issues are kind of settled with regards to, where we stand on limited government and personal freedom and constitutional rights. But as technology changes, so do our laws. And so to help us kind of navigate all this is Theresa Sidebotham. So Theresa, let's start with where you were kind of introduced to this issue. You mentioned you have a background in child safety. How did this issue pop up on your radar?
So, Jeff, we monitor child safety issues, and I actually saw it on a news article that someone forwarded to me. And, we think about child porn, especially as we're advising ministries on positions to take and how to deal with it. But AI-generated child sex abuse material, wow. So I researched it a little bit, and this is not a good scenario.
Yeah, you guys have a press release out. As artificial intelligence opens the door to more technological advancements, many are growing increasingly alarmed about the pervasiveness of artificially created child exploitation and pornography found online. Disturbed people are creating realistic images of children in sexual settings, which normalizes child pornography and could increase the number of cases of sex crimes against kids in real life. Victim identification is already a needle in a haystack problem where law enforcement is trying to find a child in harm's way. So the FBI or local police come upon images, and then they're rushing out there to try to figure out who these children are. But now they have to deal with this complicated factor of this may not actually be a child, right? This could be totally computer generated. That's one of the problems with this.
Well, it is. So AI has to be trained to make images. So what is it getting trained on? What's kind of the stable of images? Well, that might be actual child porn. It might be that it's using maybe the cartoon drawings, like, coming out of Japan, where those are not illegal. And AI can also take a mix. Like, it could take your child's face and put it on artificially generated child sexual abuse material, so a situation your child has never been in, but create, in a sense, a fantasy of your child in that situation. So, that's just incredibly scary.
Is this already illegal under current law?
So that depends on the country. In the U.S., it is illegal under several laws. All child porn is illegal under the PROTECT Act. Drawings actually are illegal in the U.S. And so because artificially created material is illegal, yes, AI-generated child sexual abuse material is illegal. But problem is, it is never getting prosecuted. And so I think part of what concerned people should be doing is encouraging prosecutors to take this seriously. Apparently, our laws are so lax that, there's some French porn providers that are using servers over here because they figure they're going to get away with it. And you just aren't hearing much discussion about it with our law enforcement. I mean, the British are starting to talk about it. Other countries are. But not so much here.
Well, I think one of the arguments that's been made in our culture is that generally things are allowed so long as there is consent. And because minors can't consent, it's illegal to engage with minors in sexual activity. That's been kind of the reasoning, it seems like, in our culture, maybe not in law, but in our culture in the last 20 or 30 years. Like, our whole foundation's built upon consent. And I think as people think about this issue, and they go, well, no, this is wrong. Even if there's not another party that's necessarily harmed, so it's not rooted in consent, there's this notion that it is universally wrong. Because it is in itself wrong for adults to be thinking about children in this way. So what is the law based on? If it's not consent, what is the actual law, current law, based on that you could prosecute people over on this?
Well, I think part of it probably is related to consent, because creating child pornography generally you would consider to be a type of child sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. You're taking a child and abusing them in order to create the CSAM, the child sex abuse material. The U.S. has gone a little further and made the drawings illegal, and I think once we start to get into, material that's not using real children, there's several angles to look at it. One is that at some point probably a real child was used. It's a little bit like the fetal cell line, if you think about it that way, that it originates back with real children at some point. But there's also the forward end of that. So it's pretty well established that people who are sexually attracted to children are created, not born. And what creates them is sometimes abuse that they experience, but porn changes the brain. And so using these increasingly deviant types of porn, including CSAM, starts to condition people to become pedophiles. And this is not good. We don't want more of them in our culture. And another issue with the CSAM is people who are sexually attracted to children use the material to groom children, to normalize it. So they show them the pictures, whether artificial or real, and this is the kind of thing that people do and get the children to do it. And then engaging in the actual sexual abuse, often, it's a vicious circle, leads to the creation of yet more child porn if they're capturing images of that. So it's just incredibly evil on so many levels. It's wrong.
We're talking with Theresa Sidebotham of Telios Law. She's an expert in issues like this, things that children are facing, child abuse issues, and the rise now of the use of AI in producing child pornography. It's something that many of us had never thought about, never even talked about. And when we come back, we're going to dive into some other issues. What is the future of this going to look like? What do prosecutors need to take on? What are some of the rising issues that technology is going to force us to deal with in law and policy that you probably never in your wildest dreams thought you were going to ever have to deal with? This is the Frontier Freedom Hour. It's sponsored by the Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. And if you're not familiar with the Centennial Institute, these are the types of issues that we deal with. You know, a lot of think tanks out there won't even touch the social issues. They kind of focus almost exclusively on economic issues, maybe constitutional issues. But as Christian conservatives, we know, we understand that it is the family that is the foundation of everything else. You will never, ever get to limited government without healthy families. And when our culture has built, you know, even its law or policies upon fallacies, about ideas that, you know, that we can center our sexual ethics just basically purely in consent, that there aren't universal moral right and wrongs, well, then you're going to deal with issues like this. And we as Christian conservatives have to be able to speak into the culture with truth rooted in the Word of God, because that leads to human flourishing for all people, not just ourselves. So we'll continue this conversation when we come back. It's a tough conversation, but you're not going to want to miss it, because this is coming. We are ahead of the curve on this. And I think this is something that hopefully Republicans and Democrats can work together to address. This is a universal human issue. You're listening to the Frontier Freedom Hour. We'll be right back with Theresa Sidebotham after these messages.